Welcome to the Rioja Wellness Show. We're glad you tuned in. My name is Margit Jefferson and I'm here with Andrei Gospodarczyk, founder of Rioja. Our specialty is integrating mindful wellness and corrective health into your daily life. We work with you to make incremental changes that will deliver even more mojo in everything you do. We work on your total health through effective nutrition and targeted exercise. Typically, this improves emotional and physical issues and leads to much more energy, a fit and healthy body and mind, and in general, just a much more abundant life. One of our things is that if your body is more in balance, you feel better. And if you feel better, you have more energy. And if you have more energy, everything around you works just that little bit better, delivering improved results. And that's what we mean by a much more abundant life. We see Rioja Wellness as giving you a secret for amazing health and wellness. Those in the know have changed their lifestyle and have the results that stick. This is what we want for you. We are just about to start the episode for today. It's on a specific wellness issue that we see in our community every day. It may just help you or someone you know on some level. And at the end, I'll be here to give you a little bit more information about Rioja. In the meantime, let's get into this episode and we hope you enjoy. This is a very special episode. It's all about one of the very sacred parts of being female. It's about period health. There are so many teenage girls and women who have problems with their menstrual cycle, thinking that it's normal or thinking they just need to put up with it or that it will get better soon or simply that they just don't know what to do about it. And then there's other women that would say the symptom isn't so bad that they need to go and see someone about it, but it's uncomfortable every single month and it's just something that is part of their makeup. We've been looking forward to presenting this episode for a very long time and it works in conjunction with our period health program. What we decided to do today is to break the episode into two parts. So this is part one and we highly recommend that you follow up on part two when it's shortly released. Now, without further introduction, let's get into this episode and start with the first question. How common are period problems in the community based on your practice?
I see quite a few of them, but they come up in two ways. The women with menstrual difficulties appear in the clinic with menstrual problems in great pain and discomfort. And they're usually extreme cases. And the other category that appear, people with, say, back trouble or some difficulty like that, and I will mention that usually this kind of issue is accompanied by menstrual pain. And they would say, yes, I do have trouble, but I thought that was normal. There's this whole other category of people that have been misled into thinking that having some kind of discomfort every month is normal. This has happened because in our society, what is average is considered normal, but that's not the case. Just because a lot of people have got these problems doesn't mean that it is normal to have these problems. So two types of categories. And on a regular basis, I discover problems in people and also they come with these sorts of complaints. Of course, there's lots of help available for women with these difficulties, ranging from teenage girls being put on the pill as a way of solving the problem, to women in later years having some kind of menopausal difficulty and given hormonal treatment. So there's all sorts of ways of dealing with it, not all of them effective, and some of them actually make the problem worse in a different way.
So the net's actually wider than we think. It's not just women who are coming in saying they've got period problems. They're coming in with other problems which are linked, which they're not aware of.
Absolutely. So you've got, say, early years in a woman's life and they feel discomfort and they're told it's no big problem and that a lot of people have this trouble, which is kind of true, and they're put on some medication. This unfortunately leads to bigger problems later where we end up seeing the sort of people that I see most regularly with menstrual problems, which is they've got some kind of fibrous issue, they've got growths in their abdomen because the whole system has been shut down. The medicine type approach is where you're given a particular kind of chemical on a regular basis to suppress functioning in the uterus, and then that leads to some kind of stagnation. Unfortunately, the end result can be some kind of deterioration in the organ. If something's not functioning or is suppressed in its functioning, then it tends to become corrupted in some way. So I would link these two problems together. So what I'm saying is that quite often the treatments that are given that just suppress the symptom, like painkillers or shutting down the menstrual cycle altogether, which is a common type of treatment these days, that might lead to major issues later on. That's what we see in all fields of health, where if you just avoid the problem, of course, it's slowly going to get worse. If you shut down the symptom and not treat the cause, you're asking for bigger problems, of course.
What are the types of things that you look at as an indicator that there is a problem in a woman's cycle?
Yeah, of course. Bloating is one of them. The belly swells up a lot. That's because it's all a fluid process. The whole of that function of menstrual process is all related to blood and the lymph, and if it's not working properly, it just bloats up. The whole belly swells, in some cases really dramatically. So bloating, which might be the only symptom, because a lot of the other symptoms are suppressed with painkillers. Back pain, because there's some kind of imbalance between the pelvic floor tensions. In other words, the uterus is misplaced. It can be sitting in the wrong place. Blood stagnates, the body twists to compensate. In other words, the hips are rotated, the pelvic floor isn't balanced, the posture is unstable, the whole of the spine twists to compensate. So now in any woman who's had long-term menstrual difficulties can relate to what I'm saying, because pain in the back is part of the symptoms of menstrual irregularity because it's connected. The uterus has a big impact on the spine. It becomes congested on one side or the other because the way that it all works is one ovary works 1 month, the other ovary works another month. There's a left-right process that happens within the reproductive organs in a woman. And this left-right thing can become very unbalanced, and it needs to be balanced. Then the spine twists, unfortunately, if it's unbalanced. Plus the uterus can be in the wrong position. You can get folding of the uterus. You can get the uterus tipping forward, tipping backwards, too high, too low. It needs to be held in the right place. The posture can be affected enormously by blood stagnation or some kind of fibrous growth. Another symptom is the growth of fibers within the uterus or extending outside the uterus wall into the intestines, and it affects digestion. It can affect the bowels, it can affect the small intestine and create what we call IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, which in fact can be within the small intestine also. So pain in eating, malnutrition, all of these symptoms. In other words, strong food cravings just before the menstrual cycle starts, great fatigue, low iron, poor physical health resulting from the body not being able to manufacture or maintain or absorb different kinds of vitamins and minerals, wide range of symptoms. If the menstrual irregularities are not dealt with and slowly become worse and worse, it's like any other part of the body that is not dealt with and nurtured back to normal health, because any part of the body is important to have functioning properly. It'll affect the rest of the body in the end. It'll make a very big impact on all other systems within the body makeup. And it's important that people understand that none of these sorts of problems are going to just stay the way it is. It's only going to become worse and affect other organs. It's all connected. It's important to know that the uterus is an integral part of the physical health for women. It all becomes very, very evident as they get older. It becomes obvious when we try to get pregnant. It becomes obvious when we try to have a natural birth. It becomes obvious when there's great difficulties after having children, things like depression and back pain, lack of sexual appetite, and then lots of difficulties later on where there's some menopause problem.
Can you go through some of the symptoms that listeners would relate to personally when they have their period that they may be thinking is normal, but actually it's not?
A bit more graphically, women can experience great pain leading up to their menstrual cycle, where there's stabbing pain in their stomach. There's a wide range of symptoms that can be associated with menstrual health, but what most people would understand and relate to are very basic. There's great pain and suffering leading up to the menstrual cycle. It can be extreme, and of course it can be more mild, and it can just be even just an emotional collapse where very irritable or depressed. That can last for a few days leading up to the menstrual cycle and go through the menstrual cycle, and even some mania can happen, but generally the opposite, where there's a very flat time there. Some mild flatness is normal, of course. Great fatigue is not normal. So some stabbing pains in the belly, great discomfort in the back is common, sharp pains in the spine. This because the blood stagnation can make the belly collapse on the left or on the right, in the upper or lower parts, and the body twists and bends to compensate, and the spine can be greatly affected. So any woman experiencing back pain during the menstrual cycle knows that it'll pass once the menstrual difficulties pass also. It's common knowledge. So that's one of the great symptoms, is pain in the belly, pain in the back. The other is very heavy flows lasting for days. Normal is 3 days, but it can go up to a week, and that's not normal. Skipping cycles where there's not enough blood is part of it, and that can just mean you have irregular patterning in the cycles, and that's quite common also. And even though it can be treated with medication, it's going to lead to all sorts of problems where we can have fibrous growth. A lack of regular flow means that the endometrium doesn't come out, and we can all end up with lots of problems there. Clotting is part of that, where there's not good flow, and the reasons for that we'll go into, but where there's clots of blood coming out, it's not clean, nice, healthy blood for just a few days. So general symptoms: bloating, sharp pain in the belly, discomfort in the back, irregular flows and clotting, emotional turmoil. These are generally the obvious symptoms associated with poor menstrual health.
And what about things like bodily functions, such as constipation, poor digestion, bladder issues, that sort of thing? Does that come into it?
The menstrual health is directly connected with other organ symptoms. It can start with bladder functions being unbalanced and overtaxed by an unhealthy diet or poor posture, some sort of infection, and that can then lead to menstrual problems. And it can be the other way around. So, as a general rule in natural therapies, we understand that everything's connected. You can have bowel problems that lead to menstrual health issues where you're not absorbing your iron, and it's fairly common knowledge that poor iron levels can lead to menstrual health issues. If you've got problems with your menstrual health, it can lead to bowel problems where from some sort of fibrous growth, the endometrium can grow outside the uterus and affect the bowels. That's one of the things that can happen. So it can go one way or the other. Having some kind of imbalance with your cycle can affect your hormones enormously, and this can lead to really bad eating patterns. It can affect you in a way where you have huge binges of eating really bad food. It can make you have very strong cravings for animal products or the other end of the spectrum, sugar, and this can lead to all sorts of problems with your health also. So it can go one way or the other. So the menstrual health can affect our bowels, our small intestine, it can affect our bladder, our kidneys, and the spine also, as I mentioned earlier. Poor menstrual health can lead to very bad posture because the body tends to twist and tends to fold forward a little bit over the discomfort. We tend to protect the area that's difficult, and the spine will bend and twist a little bit to compensate for the problems in the front, in the belly. That can lead to the spine being out of alignment, and just one simple thing or two simple things can then damage the spine a lot. So if the spine's out of alignment, and you can do a little bit of exercise or lift something, and you can cause some damage there in the back. Or over a long period of time, it just tends to deteriorate in the spine by being in the wrong place all the time over many years. So menstrual health can lead to lots of spine problems also.
A lot of women do just put up with it and wait for the day that they go through menopause so that this can all stop. Yeah. And have the perception that once the menstrual cycle is stopped and gone, then everything will be okay. But you're saying that that's not necessarily true, that it does have a profound impact on long-term health if you have problems.
They might have that idea that eventually it'll go away, and they might be getting some relief with painkillers, but it's leading to more problems later on, and even after menopause, which can last for a very long time, and the suffering can be really severe with menopause. It's difficult to deal with, even with modern medications. They don't seem to be as effective as they used to be in a lot of cases. And even though they're refining the process more and more in treating menopause, it doesn't seem to be keeping up with the deterioration. So what's happening is that the treatments that are being used for women's health, menstrual pain, and different issues associated with it, in some ways becoming more effective because of the nature of that process of becoming more effective at suppressing the symptoms and creating more problems with menopause, which on the other end they're finding more difficult to cope with. So even if we avoid to some degree the symptoms and wait for menopause to solve them for us, it's actually not a good way to think, because you're going to have lots of troubles, years and years of discomfort and irritability and anger, and makes everyone unhappy around you also. And the thing is that it's not that hard to fix up. There's no need for all the suffering and no need for all of this trouble to keep happening all the time, where suddenly your life becomes very, very difficult on a monthly basis. There's no need for that. And it's easy to fix up. And all this suffering can be cleared up in a relatively short period of time.
There's two parts to it. And one is that a lot of people don't know what they don't know and just assume that their symptoms are part of life and they just have to put up with it, and they go to the doctor, and then the doctor will prescribe a Mirena or contraception or some sort of other medical pharmaceutical treatment. and that covers the symptom up. And then the patient goes home and thinks, oh, okay, well, this is fixed now. I've actually fixed this. Why isn't the medical profession and the specialist profession more concerned with fixing the cause? Why do they just prescribe contraceptive pills for 15-year-olds who have got period problems? You know, and there's something really wrong there. And I don't understand why someone in the medical profession, you know, is not getting behind the symptoms and looking at the cause. What's your perspective on that?
There's two ideas there. One of them is that they're not trained in dealing with the cause of the problem. In other words, how to change a person's health by prescribing lifestyle adjustments, which is the cause of the trouble. We are a product as human beings of our lifestyles, and how we live is what we become. It's a lovely thing the other day someone told me, which is that when we're young, we have the face that God gave us, and as we get older, we develop the face that we've made, which I think is a lovely testament to how we are as human beings. You can start off all bouncy and well, but even in your younger years, if you're not doing the right thing as an adolescent, you can lead to severe problems in puberty, later on in menstrual health, right throughout a woman's life. And there's really no need for it if we understand the cause of the problem. So one of the biggest parts is, I think, for the medical profession, they are not trained in treating the cause of the problem. The other issue is that the very nature of Western medical science is to provide a service. It's a democratic process where you're allowed to live the lifestyle that you want to, and they are there to provide support in that. They're providing a service and treatments and therapies and different kinds of tools and medicines, machines that allow you to live the lifestyle that you want to live. As long as you can pay for that service, then you're okay. And the more money you've got and the better support systems you have, you can just keep on living the lifestyle you want to. So people are overeating and they get treatments for weight loss. And that's the nature of our modern world now, where we don't have to take responsibility so much. So that's the other side. Of course, a lot of people don't know how to deal with the cause, and they would be very grateful to be able to know how to deal with the cause of the problem, because the service that is being provided is not being effective. I mean, it would be great just to take a pill and fix all the problems, but in the end, it doesn't really work, because the nature of life is that we need to deal with the cause. You can't just keep covering up the symptom. There's two sides to it. Pain and discomfort is nature's warning, saying you are doing the wrong thing. Menstrual irregularity is a reflection of wrong action. It's a reflection of living the wrong way, which is affecting you on many other levels also. It's not just going to affect your menstrual health. So that's one understanding that is, I think, really missing in the modern Western medical approach, is that fixing up the symptom is actually the wrong thing to do. Using the symptom as a guide to success is the right thing to do. So if you have some discomfort menstrually, we need to do the right things to fix that rather than cover those symptoms up. And if you're doing the right things, the problem goes away. It's a red light. It's a warning. It's a tap on the shoulder from nature saying that you're doing the wrong thing. It's not something to be ignored by just covering it up. It's like a bad smell. It's a sign that something is inappropriate, that something is wrong. If something is ugly, it's wrong. It's a sign that it's inappropriate and needs to be dealt with. If something is uncomfortable, it's a sign that it's inappropriate and needs to be dealt with. Pleasure, comfort, ease, and delight is a normal state for human beings, and you don't get that by ignoring the thing that is talking to you, which is nature. Nature provides health. It creates our existence. It makes our heart beat. It makes our blood flow, it makes us breathe, it makes us think, it wakes us up, it supports our lives through providing food and light and air. And we need to surrender to that and listen to it, not think that we are smart enough to just shut it down and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a very elegant way of putting it, because no woman should have to put up with debilitating symptoms and not be able to live their life. And, that goes for a 15-year-old who can't go on school camp because she's got heavy periods, or it goes for someone who can't go to work because they've got excruciating pain. And I completely get that those symptoms need to be managed as quickly as possible. It's just unfortunate that in the management of those symptoms that the medical profession doesn't say, okay, now let's try and start the dialogue about what might be causing this, as opposed to, okay,
Sure.
what's the management plan? But I think you've put it very elegantly that everyone has a right to live their life, and if they can have an inquiring mind as to how to fix these things, then that's where it starts, doesn't it? You just have to ask the first question.
Absolutely. And it's not a matter of creating more suffering in your life by denying yourself of the foods you like. It's not a matter of creating more stress and strain in your life by doing physical workouts every day and running up and down the beach. It's a matter of doing the right thing. It's like we have to brush our teeth. We have to wash under our armpits. It's a normal thing. And it's just that people have not been educated into understanding basic hygiene in terms of women's health, and certain things are appropriate and certain things are not appropriate. If you have a condition, then we need to fix that up. And for one person, it might be okay to animal products and they don't have a menstrual problem. For another person, depending on their constitution, depending on their embryonic health, it depends on what their mother ate while they were in the womb. It depends on their early childhood, how active they were, their heritage. It all depends and it all varies. We're all different. And they need to discover as individuals what suits them, what fixes their problems. And we're not all the same. We all need different things. But if we understand what causes the menstrual health problems, we can easily explore those issues, very easily experiment with things and have the absolute delight and joy of really solving the problem. That then has wonderful repercussions on all sorts of other levels, for everything from cellulite to bloating in the belly to standing straighter to feeling more assertive. Just being a more stable, comfortable person within yourself. Solving your own problems through simple knowledge is a wonderful process. You're not in debt to anyone, and you grow as a human being in your understanding of who you are, your place on the planet. It's a lovely process. It's really wonderful.
Leading on from that, what do you think are the top 3 things that cause menstrual issues?
The number one is diet, which is what women turn to solve their problems automatically. I don't think any woman who's got menstrual health issues would argue that they have cravings. Food is directly linked. In other words, the manufacturing of blood within the body, the maintenance of pH level. Nutrition and blood are directly linked. Diet, of course. The other is exercise. Not exercise in terms of running up and down the beach, but in terms of maintaining correct posture. Maybe we need to build our back strength. Maybe we need to build our gut strength. Maybe we need to balance our hips so that the pelvic floor is stable, which is a very big issue for menstrual health. So exercise in terms of just maintenance, simple little things that one should do. You'll see it in different cultures. Our culture has lost this sort of idea that intellect, health, and wisdom are all connected. The ancient world in our history is deeply understanding of that very simple idea. In fact, the word gymnasium is still used in Europe for high school. The ancients knew that physical health and mental health are directly connected. So just that simple thing of maintenance based on exercise, that's really directly connected, I think, to menstrual health also. And the third thing is knowing that the breath is really important to maintain our simple ideas of menstrual health, where deep breathing and maintaining stability. In other words, that allowing the diaphragm to move all the way down into the belly. This is something that has to be done consciously. We're easily affected by our emotions as human beings. Staying calm and relaxed and stable and breathing deeply. In other words, not letting emotions run our lives and allowing stress to overwhelm us. Breathing and maintaining our health. In other words, being control of our emotions by understanding what emotions are, understanding our feelings, what they arise from, and trying to overcome all of that by breathing very deeply, being relaxed, and knowing what that means is to lead to a really happy, healthy life. And then the menstrual cycle will fall into place. The menstrual cycle is a byproduct, abundance. In other words, we will naturally be reproductive and have this extra energy for the reproductive cycle if we have a little bit of abundance in our lives. So to create this abundance, this extra energy that leads to having a healthy reproductive cycle, it comes from having good nutritional levels, a healthy, stable physical body, and an outgoing, calm, relaxed, emotionally stable personality. So those three things, I think, are really important.
So I think diet and exercise to maintain correct posture are fairly easy concepts to grasp. And this breath work is also, I know what's behind that, and so I understand that, but you're linking it to emotional well-being. And so I'm wondering if you can just explain the linkage between emotional well-being and breath work, how that fits together.
When anyone's upset, the breath gets caught in the chest. So if we're crying, sobbing, the breath is in the upper body. It gets caught, the energy gets caught in the chest. Our girlfriends will pat us on the back, or the boyfriend will rub us between the shoulders and trying to calm that energy down. But the shoulders go up and down, the chest heaves, as opposed to being calm, which is the belly moves in and out. So maintaining an emotional, adolescent or immature, underdeveloped state, maintaining an emotional, childish behavior is going to lead to poor health menstrually. The menstrual cycle and reproductive health is an adult thing. It requires energy in the hips, it requires energy and functionality in the lower belly, warmth and blood and strength. But if your shoulders are up around your ears from tension, if your energy is caught in your chest all the time, if you're a constant state of stress and self-indulgence where you're keeping your emotional state high all the time, keeping your breath caught in your chest all the time, then it's going to lead to poor menstrual health. The blood's not going to be in the belly, the movement's not going to be in the belly, the belly is not going to be nurtured by the diaphragm moving down towards the lower abdomen, and you're going to have stagnation there. So the shoulders get tight, the lower back gets tight, the belly gets tight by us not standing up straight and breathing deeply. So it might seem like a little thing if we look at ourselves and other people that we know, if they're in a constant emotional state. No one wants to be with them, really. It's a normal thing for us to back away from people who are constantly emotional and difficult to be with. On the other hand, people who are welcoming, forgiving, generous, extravagant with their love, then they're going to attract people much more easily and going to have people wanting to be with them on a permanent basis. They're going to, of course, attract people to have children with them. It's a normal thing. People who are a little bit forgiving, people who take a slightly religious attitude towards their lives where they're generous and forgiving to other people around them and try to not always blame everyone for their emotional state and try and take some responsibility. I mean, the simple idea is, we all know this, is that if you breathe deeply and go for a walk and think about it for a little while, that you'll feel a lot better. That breathing deeply is a really good way to go. And of course, things like alcohol and marijuana and sugar and chemicals, they're all going to make us emotionally unstable. The Greek word for the uterus is hysterium. We've developed the word hysteria from that, of course. If we can make the uterus healthy and strong by breathing deeply into it, we feel more emotionally stable. On the other hand, if you maintain your emotional stability by breathing deeply into the belly, then you actually heal the uterus. You're going to help heal it. Of course, that's not enough in a lot of cases. The vast majority of our issues are diet and physically related, but part of that process is connected to our emotions, on not letting them overtake us, not letting ourselves be overwhelmed and take responsibility for our emotional state. It's a difficult path and it's a constant thing to deal with on a daily basis, but it's absolutely necessary for basic menstrual health, is to learn to be calm and relaxed and breathe and keep our energy centered lower in our bodies and not let it rise up and choke us with emotions.
I think there's a lot in what you just said, but one of the things I picked up was healing the uterus is a very important thing, and I think also connecting to the uterus as a very important and beautiful part of the female body is something that a lot of women don't necessarily think about very often. There's a very big disconnect between what's going on in the reproductive system and what goes on in the head. I think the heart is regarded as a vital organ and the liver is regarded as a vital organ, but there's not too much chat about the uterus being regarded as a vital organ. So I think healing the uterus is such a beautiful concept.
Sexual health is part of it, of course. If we travel the world and meet different people and really get to understand different cultures, we'll see that human beings in different cultures have very different attitudes towards menstrual health and menstrual cycles and sexual health. Very, very different, where different religions have imposed themselves on different parts of the world and created all sorts of disconnects with the sexual health and menstrual health, and other cultures don't have those disconnects. I don't think there's even a word for menopause in some cultures. They don't have the problem. Or maybe they're developing them now because our culture has infused itself, infected these other cultures a lot now with McDonald's and Coca-Cola and all the rest of it. Traditionally, I believe a lot of cultures don't have these words anymore. These problems didn't exist. There's all sorts of different ways of looking at these things. Little world might seem like the whole world, but in fact, having very different focus in different cultures shows us that human beings don't need to suffer with these difficulties. Just a little change in lifestyle and looking at our history very quickly shows us that a lot of the modern problems weren't there, that a lot of our problems are manufactured. And there's no need for them. It's creating very big problems, not just on the menstrual health level, but also on the sexual health level, which are very connected. The menstrual health can, as soon as it gets a little bit straight and a little bit healthier, has repercussions on so many levels, not just emotional, but sexually also.
This has been part 1 of the Period Health podcast, and we highly recommend that you listen to part 2, which will be available very soon. And that wraps it up for today, and we hope you've enjoyed this episode just as much as we've enjoyed putting it together for you. Any listeners who would like to learn more about Andre's work or Ryoho can connect and follow on Instagram and LinkedIn using the address of Ryoho Wellness. We spell Ryoho Ryoho and then add wellness on the end, obviously. Episode notes will be loaded up and available at ryohowellness.com, which is the master website. And just a few more things before you take off. Number 1, do you have a health issue or question you would like explored in one of our podcasts? Please submit it to us at the website where there is a contact page, riohowellness.com website. Number 2, would you enjoy being notified by very short email every time we do something on Rioho Wellness? This includes notification of our up-and-coming wellness podcasts and other things towards our tipping point. If you want to receive that, go to riohowellness.com and drop in your email address and you'll get the very next one. And we hope you really enjoy it. Thanks everyone for listening, and thank you, Andre, for another fantastic episode. See you next time.